This review is made possible by the Restored Rusty Relics Car Club of North New Jersey. If you're in the New Jersey or New York area, please check them out and consider joining the club. They do monthly events, meetings, and have formed a community around these awesome vintage cars. Alright, what's up guys? My name is Zach, and today I am driving a 1958 Chevy Impala. Up front is a 4.6 liter V8, and down below is a 2-speed automatic transmission. Now, I'm super excited to be driving this Chevy Impala because I love the Impalas so much, and this is when they were really at almost their most iconic, I would say. Probably the early 60s, mid-60s Impalas, the 64 Impala, of course. But the Impala name is just so iconic with American history, and so to be driving a 1958 one, really of that iconic era, is such an amazing treat. But if you would like to submit your own vehicle, you can head on over to my website, zackpradel.com/submit. It's a quick and easy submission form. It takes under a minute to fill out, and I come out to you. But let's get back to that 283 V8 under the hood. Well, I always say liters in my videos just for comparison's sake and to keep everything sort of tidy, but this is a 283, and this was actually swapped into it. When this car rolled off the assembly line back in 1958, it actually came with an inline 6. So the owner actually swapped it to the bigger V8, parts availability, things like that, and it's been doggone reliable ever since. Now, like I said, paired to it is a 2-speed Power Glide. Now, the Power Glide came later in the 60s, and this is actually a mid to late 60s Power Glide, so it's aluminum. And this was kind of the transmission of choice for this era. The 3 speeds weren't really amazing up until later on, and so 2 is just fine. Last but not least about the drivetrain, the 58 Impala is rear-wheel drive. So how does it feel to actually drive a 58 Impala? Well, it drives like most other 50s cars. It's big, it's floaty, the steering is very vague, but visibility is wonderful, especially with this curved windshield. And come on, you're driving a 58 Impala. It doesn't get much cooler than that. With that stuff out of the way, let's talk about the interior. Well, in front of me, I have a speedometer that goes across the top. Love that, very horizontal, very period correct. Then we have our temperature to the bottom left with our light switch. And off to the right, we have our fuel and lighter. Down below, we do have the wiper to the bottom left. And then, like I said, we have that nice curved dash, which is a really nice touch and a really interesting piece of the interior, sort of the sculptedness of the interior. You love to see that. And moving on to the door, we have a little crank for the smoker's window, and then we have a bigger crank for the actual window. So I love the quick little baby crank for the little smoker's window. Moving into the center, we do have an aftermarket cassette player because, well, obviously you didn't get a cassette player back in 1958. Cassettes weren't really a thing, but we will talk about more audio options in a second. Off to the right, we have a beautiful Impala badge along with an analog clock built into the dash. Love the look of these together. I do get a little pop-down ashtray. Really nice to see that. Then we have our temperature setting. So this is for the heat. This is just for the heat. We'll talk about it in a second. But down below that, we have not an 8-track player, a 4-track player. Now, this is not original to the 58 Impala, but literally this morning, November 12th, I learned that 4-track players were even a thing. I thought it was only ever 8 tracks. This is a 4-track player, so just a cool piece of audio history. Doesn't have really much to do with the 58 Impala besides the fact that it's in one, but just very, very cool to see. Off to the right, we do have air conditioning. Now, this is the factory air conditioning. However, it's not integrated into the dash. So back in the 1950s, air conditioning was still a pretty new technology. It had been around in the 40s, but wasn't really implemented until the 50s. And so they didn't integrate it into the dashes because it was such an add-on feature that not everyone got. And so there wasn't really much point to build in the vents when most cars actually didn't have the air conditioning. So very cool to see that big box under the dash. We don't have any cup holders, sadly. We do have this aftermarket console that still doesn't even hold it. So unfortunately, but predictably, the 1958 Chevy Impala fails the big friggin' bottle test. Moving up to the seats, we do get a very comfy bench seat, which I was not expecting. It is actually a power seat. Again, was not expecting this at all. This has power seats back in 1958. What an absolute luxury of the time. However, speaking of seats, we do have back seats, so let's go do a back seat review. Oh, the shape of this door is not very kind to the shape of me, but we are in the back of this 58 Impala. It would not be, well, these seats are really bouncy. It's not great back here. The four-door Impala is going to be a lot better, obviously, with back seats. But I do love the attention to detail. I have cranks for my own windows back here. I get this Impala badge right in the center. I don't know if you can see that from the video, but I'll try to insert one now. Very, very cool to be back here. I just wouldn't want to ride back here for an extended amount of time. Speaking of back here, though, let's talk about the trunk. It is big, not a whole lot going on, and it's obviously a very used and driven car, but giant trunks in the 1950s, and that's very cool to see. Now we gotta talk about the looks, and this is one of the most iconic cars ever. It does look like that 57 Bel Air with the front end, of course, but just the overall, the tail fins, the circular little tail lights, all of these features are just so wonderful, and it's so American. It's so iconic. And so let's get on to my final thoughts. What do I think driving a 58 Impala? This is America at one of its best points. The Impala was a renowned name even when it was originally conceptualized as a more luxurious car. The Impala got more features than the other 210s, smaller Chevy, GM products of the era. This was something that you would buy if you were the manager, if you were the boss, if you had a couple of bucks to throw around in 1958. This wasn't your average Joe Schmo run-of-the-mill car. No. And so there's this certain regalness that comes with this car. There's this certain affluence that you feel, the sort of curved edges, all of the chrome, all of the features, the power seats. I don't have to reach down and scoop my seat up like a school child. No, I get power seats. I don't have to move a muscle. The tail fins out at the back saying, look at me. Look at who I am and where I am. And the fact that this is a coupe, this isn't necessarily a family car, although I'm sure many families drove in these, rode in these, and of course they did sell a four-door Impala, but this is the two-door. This is the personal luxury. This is a man that drives to his job and puts on a suit and does business and does work. But then again, this is painted in a nice fun red color, so it's also a weekend car. And that's what I love about the Impala. It was just this true showing of muscle, and honestly that lasted all the way up until the 90s. The Impala SS, what an amazing beast of an automobile. I'm not a big fan of the mid-2000s Impalas. I thought that they were kind of weak and whatever, but the Impala name used to mean a lot, and what it used to mean is this car. And so that's why I was so excited to share this one with you today. Huge thank you to Steve for bringing this car out for me to review. He's been absolutely wonderful, especially with showing me the 4-track player. What an awesome little treat for a Gen Zer like me. I don't know if I'm Gen Z, I'm 97. You can make up your mind if I'm millennial or Gen Z. But someone who didn't grow up with 4 tracks, very cool to learn about that. Steve's been wonderful. I can't thank him enough, and I look forward to working with him again in the future. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to rate the video, comment on the video, and subscribe if you really liked it. Take care, guys.